And just to make the connection, we are, I'm already showing a picture of a drone here, so we're going the right direction. Although we also show here a picture of people. And I think one of the key things about biodiversity observations and biodiversity monitoring, and it distinguishes it from other areas of Earth observations, is the role of people. Many of the best data sets we have are coming from volunteers and from specialists that have been collecting these data sets over time. And this is also about people today. It's about the group of people we have here. It has been a fantastic 2 days. It has been really wonderful to listen to great talks, great ideas, and I think it was really nice setup about how we should move into the next 3 days. And so today we start officially our all-hands meeting, and we have 2 goals, let's say, 2 interrelated goals for this meeting. The first is that we identify and initiate collaborative activities in the workshops over the next few days. Some of them potentially lead to working groups or biodiversity observation networks in GEO. And as a result, we also want to have a zero-order draft of the 2017-2019 implementation plan for GEO. The idea is that we'll have working groups and activities to be developed and biodiversity observation networks that we will implement, or that are already implemented and want to become associated with our network. And this is organized as until now and over the next few days into these 2 streams, on one more conceptual on essential biodiversity variables, on methods, on products, and associated with working groups. And another one more operational, associated with biodiversity observation networks that can be thematic, that can be regional, that can be national. And what we expect for each biodiversity observation network or working group is that they will come up with a working group title, and this is not necessarily going to lead to a working group. It may be a working group in a larger working group, but in terms of structure, that's what we would like to have. The coordinators and members of that working group, what are the key objectives? 5 or 6 bullet points on that. An overview of the problem that will be solved and for whom, who are the users of that. Explain how that integrates with our framework of essential biodiversity variables and or the biodiversity observation networks that we are developing. And then it should have a description of the activities that will be going to be developed, and with again the lead and the partners. And the purpose and the development schedule and the resources that will be used on those activities. Now, what are some do's and don'ts regarding this? First is that we have been having some meetings with some of the workshops and the session shares, and we heard a lot the call for thinking outside your traditional community and thinking outside your workshop and searching for connections with other people that you wouldn't meet even if you wouldn't have come to this conference. And we really want you not to be closed in your workshops today and the next couple of days. We want you to really think about connections and new connections you could develop. On Friday morning, we have a morning that has not been scheduled, and where we're going to organize some cross-cutting meetings precisely to foster these kind of interactions. We would like to have a short list of activities. One activity for one of these working groups or sub-working groups can be more than enough. And 3 will be plenty. So we're not looking for a long list of activities for the working groups. These activities should fit the vision and plan of GEO. You can find them on the website. Many of you have received them also or have worked on them. It should be about monitoring global biodiversity change across scales. So we're not in the business here of carrying out assessments, or we're not in the business of doing necessarily basic research. We're in this interface between research and assessments of improving global biodiversity change observations. And it's about change. We are also emphasizing in GEO change more than static pictures of biodiversity. The activity should be feasible and the resources available. This is something that we would really like you to take seriously. Sometimes people say aim for the moon. No, I don't think we should aim for the moon here. I think we should aim for activities that are realistic and that you could identify resources that are either available or will become available very likely for the activities that these workshops would like to develop. And we'll have report back every morning to the plenary from these workshops. So please identify who's going to report back on the workshops. We recommend you to work in a Google Doc. That you should share the link of that to Google Doc not only across the members of the workshop but also with our general email info@geobon.org. And remember, this will be an iterative process. This is it's not going to release zero order drafts, and they don't have to be completely filled what I gave you. But these zero order drafts shouldn't really be seen as, well, these will be the working groups and activities. There will be an iteration and interaction with the Secretariat and with the Implementation Committee of GEO, where we're going to identify areas of redundancy and try to bring people together if there are areas of redundancy. We're going to try to identify gaps. We're going to try to identify synergies. And so it's not the implementation plan will not be just a collection of all these documents from the workshops. And things not to do. You shouldn't spend a lot of time arguing about personal viewpoints, methods, or theories. Today is about how we collaborate together. And again, I wanted to re-emphasize that we don't want to go for a long list of unrelated activities. One activity coming out from one of these workshops, a single activity will be already wonderful, as long as it is novel and it brings added value to the community of observations of biodiversity change. We would like to have by the end of the week just zero order drafts, so just some ideas, and then people have a few weeks to submit first order drafts of these implementation plans for each working group, and then in an interaction with the Secretariat, we'll respond to you over the coming weeks on the zero order draft, and then we would expect this to be a dialogue. Okay, so enough of the do's and don'ts. How we have structured this. So we are going to split in different workshops, and you see the two streams on EBVs and on biodiversity restoration networks. In the afternoon, some of the workshops are different. And most importantly, we have at 4:45, at 16:45, we have a meeting with workshop leads. This is an important coordination meeting where we do a balance of what happened and see if there are things you need to change and adjust for the next couple of days. And tomorrow morning, there will be a plenary again, and we start at 9 o'clock tomorrow, after 2 violent days of starting at 8:30. Tomorrow you get a bit easier. And we will hear reports from these workshops. So please be ready to provide a 2-minute report of each workshop. And we have new workshops tomorrow. And on Friday, as you see, it's pretty open. We don't know what's going to happen on Friday morning. We're probably going to organize in different groups, in different cross-cutting activities. And then on Friday afternoon, we're going to be back to plenary, and there will be full reports of what happened for each of these workshops. And we'll spend the Friday afternoon discussing those reports. Now, where can you go today? This is the morning session, and what I'm going to ask, this is the rooms for the morning session workshops. I'm going to ask each person here that is leading to say in 30 seconds why your workshop is the place to go. Maybe we start with Matt.
I really think we're going to focus a lot on remote sensing EBVs, and I like this idea of them being a way to stratify and answer that question of probability-based samples. And I would like to focus how we use remote sensing to bridge to in situ in a very synergistic way to answer the question posed this morning. So come and check that out.
Thank you. Walter.
Day one, and really excited about integrating different data types. We heard about one data type, a time series. We heard about the gaps, of course, in that case. What we really want to think about in that species distribution EBV workshop is how we can put that sort of data element together with other data types to get a more complete picture in both space and time and across different taxa. So we'll be discussing some case study ideas and look forward to seeing some of you there.
Anna. Is Anna Cord?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we had a related session on this topic actually yesterday, an excellent session, which also showed us that there are a lot of opportunities using remote sensing data with respect to ecosystem services, but there are even more challenges actually. And that there is a wide range of how people address the topic. We saw in the presentations that ecosystem services, it's a very complex thing, and people try to go as deep as in the topic as possible, but then linking this with Earth's observation data is really a big challenge. So in the workshop, we're going to dig into this topic, focusing on different ecosystem services, on different remote sensing data types. And then our aim finally is to really identify what are the most important research gaps and how can we tackle these.
Mike.
Well, we're going to have videos, so you want to come to ours. Ours will be the most fun. So Bon in the Box, I think is important to have some people at, simply because we have the first prototype out, and it really is a vehicle by which we can implement the things that come out of the EBVs, whether it's the variables, the methods, and the tools, and give those to the bonds so that we can actually build better capacity for biodiversity observations. It's a very tangible, doable product, and we have videos.
Yeah, why does dryland biodiversity merit a special effort? Well, I think like marine biodiversity and wetland biodiversity, it's highly specialized. It's the first frontier of evolution away from the dependence on water. It also needs a special effort because at present in the UN system of environmental change, it's only dealt with by UNCCD related activities, and they want to turn the drylands into agriculture. So we should care for biodiversity dryland. I also think it's possible in cooperation with the UNCCD networks like DesertNet International, GNDRI, VOCAT, ICON, etc. So I'm sure it's exciting.
Adrian.
Okay, so for our global wetland observation system workshop, it's a bit different because we actually applied for becoming a GEO initiative, but this initiative basically grew out of GeoBond, and so for us now it's really important to make the necessary links to the new GeoBond structure to keep tight cooperation with GeoBond, while on the other hand we also aim to work closely with other more water-related activities within GEO, and it's basically driven by the need of global conventions like the Ramsar Convention and now the SDGs to develop a system for improving the monitoring of wetland ecosystems worldwide. And so biodiversity is one main component of this, and we want to use this opportunity to introduce our ideas and get you involved to think about how we best structure and manage the cooperation with other initiatives within GeoBond and with especially I think the freshwater and marine activities here in GeoBond.
And in the afternoon, we have some workshops that are different. So I'm going to ask just the people from those workshops that are different. Nestor.
Yeah, so in our workshop, we are going to try, well, there are two essential biodiversity variables that we think we need to progress. One is ecosystem changes in ecosystem functionings. Another is changes in ecosystem diversity. So we are going to try to merge efforts from the remote sensing community. I hope people from the ecosystem services communities come in because we want to build a product in 2-3 years to try to inform those variables.
And Patricia.
So this afternoon, we will be working on the framework I quickly presented yesterday, where we've been thinking about the different dimensions of ecosystem services that we need to address. So we're thinking about variables such as supply and anthropogenic contribution to supply and so on. So we're going to test together for each of your own study site and the services to which you're familiar. We're going to test these variables. And then we're going to explore which kind of indicators we would use for each of those.
Aleta. Is Aleta here? No. So then Mike.
Well, we don't have videos in this one, but you should still come to it. This one's really about, from the perspective of the bonds, what's the most high value things that GeoBond should be doing to underpin bond development and enhance existing bonds and also connect them. So it's again applying the EBV framework and building tools and processes by which we can actually have an interoperable network of national, regional, and thematic bonds. So again, it's really nuts and bolts. It's doing more than conception.
Okay, and last but not the least, Frank.
Thank you. Well, the ocean covers over 70% of the planet, and it's a really important place for all of us. All of our lives depends on it, and yet it's, as Maria showed, it's still grossly undersampled in time and in space. So I think that the MBON is an activity that's trying to wrap up all of the other areas that you guys are all talking about into one framework that invites people from different countries and different areas to try to build an observing system. So I think that we need as much brain power as we need that to put this together. So you're welcome to come to that.
Okay, thanks for these short presentations. I also wanted to call your attention that we have both a very lively Twitter page with a lot of people mentioning. We have already 87 tweets just for over these 2 days, and I think it'll be a great communication tool to use through the workshops, and we get a bit of insight of what's happening in each workshop. If people tweet about things like a coup, if they're trying to try to rechange even more or change even more the structure of GeoBond, or some other activities, it will be good to mention the tweet. We also have a Facebook page where we are posting photos from the first days. You should check it out, as we got a photographer, and there is some cool photos of the first day. And okay, and before we break, I wanted to open now for 10 minutes, if there are for discussion and questions about how we're going to proceed. So we'll take a few questions.
So it was really interesting to see Maria's talk and to see the large gaps that are in biodiversity observations. How is GeoBond going to help us focus on those areas?
Well, yeah, it was very informative, and we've already been thinking along those lines. I mean, we don't want to neglect any part of the planet, but a lot of the focus around the operational aspects of GeoBond, where we apply the EBVs through bond development, whether it's through the marine bond, but also some of the work we're doing in tropical areas, such as in Latin America and Africa, is part of the focus. So I think we're already positioning ourselves in that manner. But we don't want to, of course, exclude discussions in other parts. Does that answer your question, Eugenie? No?
One thing I think we need to be very careful about in the next couple of days is assuming that there's a one-to-one link between the workshops that are being held and the eventual working groups that will be created in the GeoBond structure. And I think we all realise, or some of us realise, that the workshops that we're having are to some extent sort of reasonably ad hoc, in that they reflect the sorts of proposals that were put up, that I would envisage in some cases that some of these workshop topics would end up forming only part of an eventual working group, and then there might be whole working groups that aren't actually covered by any of the workshops at the moment. So I think I'd encourage people not to sort of assume that the list of workshops is just somehow going to morph into a list of working groups. And in fact, it would be really good to get advice back from those workshops as to how they think the working group structure would best serve the particular topic that they're dealing with.
I think that's an excellent point, Simon. I think that's the idea, is precisely that we will have, there should be no one-to-one link. Some of these workshops may not lead to any, maybe they just do their work here. That'll be perfect, they write the paper here or something, or they write a new app here. Others may maybe better working in the future if we merge them, or if we take elements of them. That's why I emphasize again that there is a dialogue between the GeoBond Secretariat and these plans that will going to come, and the final organization may look very different from the organization of these workshops.
But also, I think you're right, Simon, in that I think on Friday we have to really look at what we're missing, right? So we can't assume that what is talked about over the next 2 days is the whole portfolio of GeoBond for the next 3 years. So we're going to have to really look at what the gaps are and talk about how do we actually build up those parts of the system.
Questions, then I think let's get to work and enjoy your day at the all hands meeting.